guys, welcome back to my channel, Simone here. So today I'm going to be finally, I know it's May, this is ridiculous, finally finishing my 2017 end of year videos, and this is my 5-star reads of 2017 part 2, and today I have 14 books to talk to you about, and like I said, I will finally be finished them, and trust me, next year I will not be doing these videos. Because this took me way too long. I will just do like my favourite books of the year kind of thing. I'm not going to do like all the books I read, let's talk about everything. So let's get started because I've got 14 books to talk about. So the first 5-star read to talk about today is The Chemist by Stephenie Meyer. Now, Stephenie Meyer, if you don't know, is the author of Twilight, and I did really enjoy the Twilight series. I know a lot of people have some issues with it, but I really loved it. And I read The Chemist by her because I thought, well, I really liked her other books, maybe I'll like this one. The Chemist is her first adult novel, and I loved it even more than I loved Twilight. So that kind of tells you, I did love Twilight, but I love The Chemist. The Chemist follows a woman who used to work as a biochemist, I think. I'm not sure exactly her job title, but basically she works with chemicals and kind of in trying to extract information from people by using certain chemicals to kind of torture them, I guess. And she is then turned on by the government that she works for, and they're trying to like hunt her down. Anyway, they find her one day and they offer her the chance to make up for all the things that have happened in the past by doing this one last job and getting some information from this one guy. Long story short, all these things happen and a love affair ensues, and it's just really strange. Anyway, I loved this book, like I said. This was so interesting. A lot of people have said that this was too slow paced and nothing really happened. I didn't find that. I loved this. Like, I can't even explain how much I loved it. It was amazing. I just really enjoyed it. Maybe I like a slightly slower paced book, I don't know, but I just really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really well written, really well researched, and I just felt like I cared about the characters in this. The main character, I think she's bomb. I love her, she's amazing. So yeah, can't wait to read more Stephenie Meyer books when she comes out with them, because this one was incredible. The next book I loved was Finding Audrey by Sophie Kinsella. Now, I've talked on this channel a lot about how much I love Sophie Kinsella, and this book was no exception. I believe this is her first YA book, so it's weird that I read a Stephenie Meyer book, her first adult book, and loved it, and Sophie Kinsella's first young adult book, and I loved it. But either way, I did love it. This follows a girl named Audrey who, after something happened to her at school, she suffers from extreme anxiety and social panic attacks, and I'm not entirely sure the exact term for what she's been diagnosed with, but she really struggles, and I definitely saw a lot of myself in her. What I loved about this is she meets a guy in this, and it is about that relationship, but I don't think that it's about the guy saving the day. Like, it's not a case of, oh, the guy came along and suddenly miraculously she's better. It wasn't that at all, which I thought was amazing, because I do feel like a lot of the time that's what's portrayed in books, and I can tell you, you don't get saved by just one person coming into your life, like, honestly. Like I said, I loved this. I thought it was such good representation. Audrey was amazing, and I found myself just feeling the things that I felt in the past when I read this book, which was eye-opening for me and just a beautiful kind of remembrance of the things that I've been through and the things that I've got through, and I've kind of overcome, which I know sounds like a really dramatic thing to say, but it really was. I adored this, and definitely would recommend if you are having mental health issues, although maybe don't read it if you're in the crux of those problems, because I think that this could kind of remind you too much of what's going on, but certainly I think it helps to kind of know where you've come from and kind of where you've gone. So yeah, definitely recommend that. Next up, I have a book by one of my favourite YouTubers, and that is Zoella. I'm sure you've all heard of her. I'll link her below if you haven't, but I'm sure you have. And this one is Girl Online on Tour by Zoe Sugg. And Zoe Sugg, like I said, is Zoella, and she wrote a series of 3 books. I've read the first one. The first one was Girl Online. The second one was Girl Online on Tour, and the third is Girl Online Going Solo. I have not read the third one yet, but I do plan on doing that. This follows Penny, who in the first book is kind of getting into a relationship with a boy named Noah, and it's about that, and he is actually a famous rock star, and it's about her. She has an online blog and she deals with anxiety, so there's a lot of things there that I feel like link to me in some way. And this one is the second one, like I said, and this is where she goes on tour with Noah with his band, and it's about that and kind of what happens and how she deals with being in his space and things like that. I loved this book. I thought it was amazing, and the best thing for me about this is not necessarily even Noah and Penny's relationship. I just love Penny's relationship with her best friend Elliot. I think it's amazing, it's great, and it also shows a really good male-female romance without the, sorry, male-female friendship without there being romance. That was a bit of a Freudian slip. Again though, I adore this. I think the cover of this is amazing. I think Zoe's done a great job. Yeah, I'm really glad I liked this. Up next is Isla and the Happily Ever After by Stephanie Perkins, and this is the third book in the Anna and the French Kiss companion series. I love all of these books. I think Anna was definitely my favourite, but Isla is just one of those books that was just really beautifully written. It's set back in France, the same as the first one is, and this has all of the characters from the previous books in as well, which was a really nice surprise for me. So this follows Isla, who is a bit of a hopeless romantic, and she has a bit of a crush on Josh, who is a cartoonist, and the two of them sort of start to have like a little bit of a romance, and then they have to deal with their families and their kind of futures and what's going to happen to them when they finish school, and I just absolutely adored this. Like I said, I think Isla is probably my second favourite after Anna. Oh, I didn't know though, because I do love Lola. I just love them all, to be honest with you. They're all incredible. I love the fact that all three of them are about women, like girls who really stand up for themselves and they know who they are and they're not ashamed about that, which I think is great. And yeah, I definitely want to reread these at some point because I did love them so much. But 100% would recommend. Then I have Rogue by Danielle Steele, and as you know, I do love a Danielle Steele book. In fact, in the 5-star part 1 that I'll link below, I talked about 44 Charles Street by Danielle Steele, which was one of my favourites, and I adored this one as well. Rogue is about a woman who is divorced from her husband, and they have 3 children, but they're on like really good terms still. They're like best friends still, and the only reason they broke up was because they have a lot of money, and he wanted to use that money by going on holidays and doing all of these kind of like luxurious and kind of frivolous things, and she is a bit more, she works as a child psychologist, and she's very much like in her job, she loves it, and she's very passionate about it, and she just couldn't settle down with, like, she couldn't stay with him because he was so much like bouncing everywhere, and she never really saw him because he was everywhere. And then something happens, there's a disaster in another country, and he wants to work on a new project with her, but whereas they both have new relationships, and it's kind of that kind of awkward, like her new partner is a bit wary of him, so it's kind of one of those, and I found this to be really interesting. I love the fact that this is a book about a divorced couple who are like best friends, because you didn't know this about me, my parents actually have been married twice. The first time they were together, they got divorced, and but they were like still really good friends, and then they got married again. So yeah, it's kind of one of the, I don't really read that many stories about divorced couples who have like a really amicable relationship, so I really like that, and I think that it's more important that we talk about that as well, because I do think, especially when there's children involved, it's one of those things that you kind of have to still be on good terms. I've never been in that situation, clearly, but I feel like it's an important thing to talk about in books more. Then we have City of Glass by Cassandra Clare, and this is the 3rd book in the Mortal Instruments series, and I am determined to finish this series this year. I have the next 3 books like on my TBR urgently, and I really want to read them, but the City of Glass was the 3rd book, and I read this actually on holiday this year, so it has really good memories for me. I'm not going to talk about too much about this, but the first book, City of Bones, it follows the Shadowhunters and Clary Frey. Clary Frey finds out that she's a Shadowhunter, and the Shadowhunters basically like protect the human world from demons, and it is about that relationship and kind of the things that happen, and it's really good. Again, I can't really talk about the 3rd one without spoiling it, but I can't wait to finish this series so I can finally get on to like the Infernal Devices and Lady Midnight and all that one. Really excited. Then I have my first non-fiction that I've talked about on this list, I think, and that is Spectacles by Sue Perkins. Sue Perkins is one of my favourite comedians. She works with Mel Giedroyc. Oh, I don't know how to say her name. I always feel like people say it wrong, and I feel really bad for saying it wrong. Mel and Sue from the Bake Off, the Great British Bake Off when it was on at BBC. And they have just a really good relationship, and I love that that was in the book as well. Sue Perkins is a lesbian, and she talks about that in the book. She also has suffered from a brain tumour, I think, which was benign, but there are certain things about that she talks about in the book as well. And I just adored this book. Like, it really talks about like coming out, and it talked about poverty and having no money, and then how she got into comedy, which I think was a really great story. And I just think she's really, really funny, and I do love her, and I think that this book really just showed everything about her on the plate, which I just thought was amazing. So I would definitely recommend, and I really want to read the audiobook, because I've heard that the audiobook is, I think it's written, like, is it read by her? I think so, and I really, really just want to listen to that, because again, I love her. Next up is Postmortem by Patricia Cornwell, and this is the first book in the Kay Scarpetta series. Now, if you watched my April wrap-up that went out on Monday, you'll know that I read the second book in the series this month. So this is quite strange that I'm now talking about the first book. But Postmortem, Kay Scarpetta is a medical examiner, and she basically looks at crime scenes, and she does like forensic science and all this stuff, and to find out what happened to certain people and why it happened. And I love that kind of TV show. I'm a big fan of like CSI and stuff like that. So this is like book form CSI for me. I love Kay Scarpetta, and I really, really like Marina, who's the police officer that she works against, like with, should I say, not against. And I absolutely love this series. I've wanted to start reading it again because I've read quite a few of the books, but sort of out of order, and I really wanted to get the backstory behind them, so I've started them again, hence why I read the first book last year. I've just read the second book this month. But this particular book follows a string of women who've been strangled in their bedrooms, and it's about Kay trying to figure out who did it and why they did it. And it's just a great story. I love Patricia Cornwell's writing. I think she's amazing. She does a lot of research into the kind of particulars of this, and I found it really, really fascinating. And yeah, I can't wait to continue on with the series and read number 3 soon. Now, I should tell you that in this part of the video is going to be the Harry Potter books that I reread, so look out for those because they're coming, I assure you. So this one might be shorter than the other part because there are quite a lot of the Harry Potter books in this. The next one is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows by J.K. Rowling, and this is actually the final book in the Harry Potter series. And this, I absolutely love this one. This is the only one though of the Harry Potter series that's not set at Hogwarts. Which I did miss a little bit in this, I will say, but I know why it's obviously happening. This, again, I don't really want to go into too much detail because some people still haven't read this. But this is the finale, so it's kind of like the big battle, the things that happen, and it's the ending, and I loved this book. Obviously I gave it 5 stars. I just want it to go on forever. The only thing I will say is I'm not a big fan of the epilogue in this, but I think we've all expressed that sort of problem, but I'm pretending that didn't happen, so I'm reading the rest and I love it. Next up is Sisters by Danielle Steele, funnily enough, another Danielle Steele book. Sisters is actually probably, I think, my favourite Danielle Steele book I've read so far. This follows 4 sisters, strangely enough, clue is in the name, and they all live and work in very, very different places and very, very different jobs. But they all go back home for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and at Thanksgiving they've all gone home, they're spending the time with their parents, and then something really bad happens and they are all then having to deal with it and talk to each other and sort life out and kind of come to terms with it. This talks a lot about grief, and it talks a lot about after grief and living after and kind of moving on from it. I got really emotional reading this book because I didn't expect what happened to happen, because I don't think I read the synopsis very well, and now I read it I'm like, of course that's what it meant, but at the time I was like, I don't know what this means, I'm going to read it and find out. But like I said, I got very emotional, it was very, very sad, so do expect some sadness going into it, but it was so beautifully written. I loved all 4 of the sisters. I thought they were all very, very unique and amazing in their own way, and I just think they're incredible. I love this book, I would reread it in a heartbeat, and I just want to read all of Danielle Steele's books because I think she's amazing and I loved this book. Oh dear. There's a man who's just pulled up outside of my house who, let's just say his car, he's just lifted the lid of the front of his car up, and it's smoking, so that can't be good, can it? What's he doing? Adding water to it. Ooh, I'm not sure how I feel if that's a good idea or not. there is a child in the back of his car as well, so that's slightly awkward. If the car explodes and you hear an explosion, you'll know why. I'm hoping it's just because it's overheated, because it's like 25 degrees here right now, which I realise for some people in other countries that's like nothing, but trust me, I'm boiling. And I've had to turn my fan off because it's too loud on the video, so I can only apologise if I look like a sweaty mess. But yeah, basically, in order to find these books, I went onto Goodreads and I went to my 2017 shelf, and I've what do you call it, like listed them by rating, and so they come up with how, I don't know how they work out what order to put them in, so that's why sometimes, like in my other 5-star video, I think I talked about like the second book in a series, and then a bit later on talked about the first. That's how I'm getting the order of these. So the next one, strangely enough, is another Harry Potter book. This one is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince by J.K. Rowling. This is the 6th book in the Harry Potter series, and this one is my favourite. I love this book. This is kind of like the maximum Harry Potter-Dumbledore relationship, and I do really, really enjoy this book. Again, I'm not going to go into this too much because it's Harry Potter and I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but definitely, if you haven't read Harry Potter yet, you need to read it because it's so good. This is quite a chunky book though, but I did love this one. Like I said, this is definitely my favourite. Next up is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling, which is the 5th book in the Harry Potter series, and I don't have this book with me right now because I'm currently listening to the audiobook of it, and my physical copy is in a different room, and I don't want to go get it because, like I just said, it's boiling in here. But this is, like I said, this is the 5th one. This is the one where the tone of it changes, I think. I think the first 4 are quite upbeat, but I definitely think this one is where it starts to change and become a little bit more dark and adult, maybe. I don't know. I really, really loved book 5. Like I said, I'm listening to the audiobook of it right now and I'm really enjoying it. So yeah, I definitely want to read the rest of them. I've listened to, I think, the first one and the second one on audio, and then I jumped to number 5 because why not? I don't think I need to read them in order anymore. I know the story off by heart. But yeah, I definitely really liked this one, and that's why it's on this list. Up next, I have another reread, and this is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, and I reread this in 2017 and I gave it 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed this book. This follows Nick and Amy Dunn, who are celebrating their 5th wedding anniversary, and Amy goes missing, and Nick is the prime suspect in her murder/disappearance. And it's told from 2 different perspectives. So it's told from the perspective of Nick at the time of her disappearance, and then it's told from diary entries from Amy, from when they first met and up to this point. And like I said, this was amazing. It's really, really good. I definitely think Gillian Flynn's strength is that she writes unlikable characters amazingly well. She's incredible at that, and I definitely enjoyed this. 100% recommend this. I also really like Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. Did not like Sharp Objects so much, but I'm pretty sure I've talked about this because I read all of her books last year. So yeah, definitely read Gone Girl and Dark Places, but if I were you, I would give Sharp Objects a miss. And then the final book is another Harry Potter book, and I'm actually really glad that I'm finishing this whole series on a Harry Potter book. This is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire by J.K. Rowling, and this is number 4, and this is my second favourite. I love this. This has the Triwizard Tournament in, and I just find this whole thing, like, it's jam-packed with stuff. There's like the Quidditch World Cup and the Triwizard Tournament, and there's so many things happening in this book, and I love every single minute of it. I think that the Goblet of Fire because it's the first big book of the series. Like, I think the first 3 books are kind of like less than 300 to 400 pages, and then this one's, I think, how long are you? Like 650, so this is the first of the big books. But I still think it's amazing. I absolutely love this. And I definitely would recommend, again, you pick up Harry Potter if you haven't read it, because why not? And then I've done. That is my end of year videos finished, and we're in May, so I'm doing well. At least it was the first half of the year, I suppose. So I would really love it if you would give this video a thumbs up and check out the rest of the playlist, because I have spent so much time on it, quite clearly, because we're in May. So yeah, I hope that you liked this video, guys. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.